Welcome back to the Last Week This Week podcast, episode 74. I'm Ian Scott.
And I'm Zack Huber.
And this is the podcast where we talk about film and TV topics from the last week and get them to you all this week. And this week, I think we have some anticipated topics that you all are, I'm sure, eager to listen to, hopefully.
Highly anticipated.
Yep.
Yeah, so we got some pretty interesting news that there is a Robin's origin story being developed at DC Studios.
Yep.
We also are going to talk about a Variety article that came out, which I don't know how much it's made waves. I know it's made waves in some circles that I've seen. I don't know how big people are talking about it, but they kind of talked about how studios are finding ways to combat toxic fandom. And there's some really there's some ideas being put across that I we're gonna get into. I think they're some good,
bad.
some bad, some good, some bad. I think there's also a new Clint Eastwood movie. I don't know how he's still going. With Juror
he's got
number 2,
somewhat of a system going for directing movies. So
yeah, Juror number 2 with Nicholas Hoult. Can't wait to talk about that. It looks great. And we are also going to talk about the 2 newest Penguin episodes that came out because we weren't able to talk about the second one.
Yep.
But we do have enough time. We were able to make in time for the third. Now, the main thing that we're going to get into at the beginning is I feel like the biggest movie in the news lately, which is our review and discussion of Joker Folie, Deux. And I was telling Ian before we started that when I got home from watching the movie last night, I was telling my girlfriend that this is one of those movies that I feel like my friends will just will make fun of me for and just gaslight me.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
Like Eternals.
I knew it. He like likes Eternals.
It. No. Okay. So everybody who's like gonna, who hates the movie, I understand.
Uh-huh.
And I just want.
I had a feeling.
I want to preface a few things. Okay. There are a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of problems.
Yeah.
I have my issues with how they handled the direction and the character progression of Arthur. I have my issues basically, and also like how it all to a certain extent doesn't go places. I have my issues with retreading old information that we already knew. I have my issues with some of the pacing. I have my issues with some of the songs. It is not a perfect movie by any means.
Sounds like there's a lot of problems.
But I have my reasons why I enjoyed it. And so I just want to say,
okay,
I want to preface that I don't think it's perfect. I agree that there's issues.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that before people are like, how can you like this movie? I will get into it.
There are large problems with the structure of this movie. And I think it's genuinely fundamentally flawed as a sequel to the first movie. I don't think they fit together at all. And it feels like, to me, it feels like a very forced addition to the first movie. But that's me going into no details. So I know that's a very brief, non-spoiler talk if we were to end it there. But I feel like it's hard to talk about this movie without spoilers.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we can go into spoilers.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, well, here's the thing. I will say, I didn't hate all the musical numbers. I did feel like there were a lot.
There were.
And sometimes they didn't feel incredibly natural to the story.
No.
I I was so frustrated with the fact that so much of this movie was a courtroom drama that wasn't a good courtroom drama. I don't know. I wanted a lot more out of this, and it was I don't know. I don't want to say boring because I wasn't bored the whole thing. I think I was interested in like the story of Arthur. But so much of it to me feels like it has nothing to do with like the last third of the movie. And I think that's kind of where my main problems lie with this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But that's again non-spoiler talk. So
yeah. I'm not disagreeing with you. Like I'm just not.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But anyways, I feel like, all right, so let's get into the
Let's do it.
The spoilers.
Right.
So let me lay out some positives before, like, I don't even know how to talk about this movie. I'm still thinking about it because
this is the most I've ever thought about a movie after I watched it.
Yes,
like,
I agree.
The whole rest of the day after I watched it, I was just like, I was genuinely trying to make sense of it. I was like, okay, why did they do this? And like,
yes.
And I was, I was seeing other people's takes of like why it was actually good. And I was like, yeah, I don't really agree with that, but like, I see where you're coming from. And so.
Yeah. I mean, there's, that's one of the things that I talked about after I watched it was I've not thought this much about a movie in a while. And that is partially an appeal to me that I'm having to sit and think and contemplate what I watched, what I did like, what I didn't like, what I feel like they were trying to go for, what maybe they did achieve. And so I wanted to say that although like there was the news today that basically Todd Phillips got complete creative control from the studio, which
wouldn't even take calls from James Gunn.
Could be good, could be bad. I think most people in this instance would say that it was a bad idea. And I generally think that, as much as it's nice to have your vision come to life, like having some oversight is good. Like they didn't even do test screenings is what I was hearing.
Yeah, that's what I heard too. But I think either test screenings or any input from anyone else could have fixed the ending of this movie.
Let's not get there yet.
I hate it so much.
Let's not get there. So,
I hate
all right, some positives.
All right.
Joaquin Phoenix, I thought did a really great job. I think he's still. I believed him as Arthur Fleck. Regardless of how they took his character or the story, I think he was great. I thought Lady Gaga was great
as well. I also thought Brendan Gleeson?
Yeah,
I thought he was great as the main prison guard.
Some of the song choices were good.
I liked it when it felt like we were really getting an insight into like how Arthur was feeling.
Yes.
That's when I think it worked the best. Other times it felt, like, what is the point? And like sometimes it was like really dragging on the song.
Sure.
But go on.
I thought that especially in the last 20 minutes, they took a lot of, I don't want to say risks, but they took a lot of, interesting routes that I wasn't anticipating. And I kind of appreciated how some of them.
Yeah, I'd have to disagree with you.
And overall, I think that as much as I didn't want a sequel to this movie, and there is a part of me that can't part of the thing with like the news today that Todd Phillips had wanted creative like control makes me think that him and Joaquin really did think that they had this really interesting idea and they wanted to go for it, as opposed to Warner
No, I
Brothers
agree. I don't think it
being
was a
like,
studio
let's
pushing
make
them.
well, I do think that the studio is pushing them to make a sequel, and then they were like, all right, we have this idea, but we will only
Right.
do it if we do it our way.
Right, our way. Sure.
Which I think is like, for example,
Well, as Warner Brothers, why wouldn't you do that? Right. Like your first movie just made $1 billion. Like, let him do whatever he wants.
If they would have had some oversight in like the editing process, I think this movie could be at least, I don't know, maybe 5 to 10% better.
Okay.
Just in the editing, process, because I do think that this movie drags at times.
Yes. Yeah.
God, all right. Well, besides that,
well, you know what? Here's a really like kind of particular thing I wasn't a fan of. They introduced Lee. They introduced Lee at first, and like the first thing she does is the gun to the head, like the fingers, and I was like, how would she, like, what's the context there? How would she know how to do that? And like I got actually excited because I was like, oh, that's got to be Arthur just like making shit up in his head, right? And like just like he did in the first movie, he imagined that whole relationship with Sophie, I think was her name, and I think that is something I was incredibly disappointed with this movie, is that there was never a question of whether this was real or not. He wasn't like this person going insane or being an unreliable narrator. It did the opposite of the first movie. It confirmed so much of what happened in the first movie. Whereas what was so exciting about the end of that first movie was like, everyone was like, oh, well, this could be not real and this could be not real.
Right.
But they just throw all of that out the window. And I don't know. That was a major disappointment for me.
I don't know. I still felt like there were times where I still felt like I couldn't tell what was actually happening and what was not happening in this movie.
I mean,
like there were times where like the songs would break out and I'm like, okay, this is actually happening. And then other times I'd be like, I don't know if this is actually happening. Maybe they're just trying to convey a sequence. And then like now granted, like are you saying like,
go on.
Well, I didn't know if the scene at the end at the stairs was real with Lee for a bit. And then
really?
I think that was real.
Yeah. Although I really don't think it has much point, but
I don't know if I would say
we'll get to the last 20 minutes of it and we'll critique that. But
yeah, this movie definitely did bring things a bit more into like, no, this actually happened. And I think that was part of the problem with like the courtroom scenes at times were
right, because like everyone in the courtroom and all of us are like, well, Arthur obviously did it. And like, well, so we're really only arguing against is he mentally fit or if he's not mentally fit. I think, and then he throws it out the window halfway through.
So yeah, I think this would be a good point to talk about the biggest idea that you find out what they're basing this story off of in the opening scene where it's like this animated, old time cartoon.
Oh, yeah.
Where
I didn't hate that.
No, I didn't hate it, but what they were introducing in that was that he was not behind the wheel. And
right, that the figure of Joker had gotten too big for him to handle, and that it overshadowed the person of Arthur.
And it did rub me wrong because that was never a thought that had come up. Like, I don't think anybody ever thought that with the first movie.
No, and they pushed that narrative of like him having two personalities throughout the whole movie when I never, like, my interpretation, and I think this interpretation is flawed and wrong, but like my interpretation of the first movie was that like the whole movie is like pounding and beating on Arthur and like forcing him into this person into the being of Joker by the end of the movie. And it was more of, it wasn't like a snap and he had a different personality. It was like an evolution of who Arthur was.
Right.
And I felt like he was Joker at the end of that movie. I didn't
Right.
feel like he was hiding himself underneath the Joker persona, you know?
Right. And now, granted, as much as I didn't ever buy into like, oh, there was somebody else behind the wheel, because I thought that was a weak. Like, I was like, I don't believe this at all. But
Agreed.
like, what? Fine. That is what we're trying to argue in court and base a lot of this movie off of. But I did like eventually when you get to the end and he kind of confesses and admits who he actually is. And I also liked that his mom basically told him this story and that he wanted to believe it so bad that he based his whole life around it. Like those were strong moments and strong ideas that I kind of felt like the only thing that I have an issue with is that for a majority of this movie, I felt like, now granted it's like 2 years later, I believe.
2 years. Yep.
But like we've like completely at the beginning of this movie, we've brought him all the way back to almost where he was, and he's all stiff.
Exactly.
And eventually I like us getting like it coming out again and all the forces of like Harley and his supporters all feeding into his mental illness, and then him having the realization and also, finding out what his mom said about him, and that like he based his whole life around wanting to please people and make them happy. And so like all that stuff like worked for me. I'm just a little like, it was frustrating that like it took so long to get there.
Right. And I think that's the thing. Like the argument behind this movie is that like the theme of it was that, it was like, from what I've heard, like, arguments about it is that, the audience in a sense is very much like his supporters or like Lady Gaga's Lee. And in a sense where like we want to see Joker, right? And so like the theme of the movie is like he's being used in every angle. Like the guards are using him for humor, and his supporters are using him for their cause, and Lee is using him, for her insaneness or whatever you want to call it. And by the time like there's really only two instances where like you feel like Arthur is changing again, and it's in that that dialogue he has with Puddles, where like by the end he understands how like Puddles felt in that moment, and like you almost see him have an emotional reaction to it, right? And then after he calls out like the guards at the prison, and they very heavily imply that they rape him. It's very much like after that he's just done. And I think like the theme is there, it's just not strong enough. I think like what was so strong about the first movie was that it was like this build up for the entire movie, whereas we didn't get much of a build up at all. It was like so much of the movie was out other things, and then like a couple of things built up into like him just not wanting to be Joker anymore, right? I don't know. I think that is like, to me, the biggest flaw structurally with this movie is that there just wasn't enough of a rising tension. And like the movie comes to a point where like there's an explosion, like I look at the first one, like the explosion was him shooting Murray. Yeah. Like, and I think the explosion is, literally almost like exploding the courthouse. You could also look at it as like Arthur just saying, I'm not Joker anymore. But I don't think either of those like hit nearly as hard as the first movie's like what it built up to,
Yeah, I would agree with that. I do also think that because he's building up to being Joker to being Joker to being Joker, and then very quickly, like with the conversation with Puddles and with what happened with him and the guards, and then the guards killing the guy that was obviously
him too, right?
Very much in support of what he was doing,
right?
Or at least the Joker persona. And like, I do think that it was a very quick, like, I am not that person, like, or at least like, this has always just been me. Like, I'm, obviously causing pain to other people.
Right.
I do agree with you that like, it wasn't one of those things that was like rising, or like building up to that. Like, it was kind of pretty quick.
It was quick.
But the thing is, like, as much as I do think it was quick, I don't hate it. Like, I don't hate the way that it like happened. There's a lot of things about this movie that I agree are sloppy or drag or aren't necessary. And at times, like, there are times where I'm like, all right, come on. Like, let's move past this. But
that tap dancing scene.
I like that. And this is the thing. Like, part of the thing that I think, and I don't know if this is true, but I do find that a lot of the times movie fans and I mean, comic book fans, but like a lot of movie fans will base how much a movie is good by like the plot and how this could line up in time and how this all lines up in time and why this is important. And sometimes I do think that there is a strong argument to be made that sometimes when you just watch something and it just like I know that scene that you're talking about where they're just playing music and he's tap dancing. For me, like, it was entertaining and I really liked it. And also I can't remember what happened right before that, but it was at the height of him thinking like, this could be me, him and his delusion of like, this will actually be me and Harley. And this is what we will be able to do. And I know that it is unnecessary, but sometimes it's like, who cares that it's unnecessary? I liked it. I thought it was entertaining and I got to feel the like joy. I think that's what it is. Like, I got to feel the joy that he so much was thinking he was going to have, even though it was completely delusional.
It's an interesting take. I don't fully disagree with you. I guess just for me, like, yeah, I understand. Like, not everything has to be like serving the plot in a movie. I think it's just like the musical numbers and those scenes that were in his head like weren't always the strongest. And I don't know, though, that was one for me where I was like, by a minute into it, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm done. Like, let's move on to the story. And I don't know. I get it. I get that. Yeah. Maybe, yeah, that was really reflecting his emotions.
I think it's also like, this movie has a lot of surrealism. And if you're not somebody who likes that, like, right. I don't imagine that you're going to like those scenes. And I agree, like some of them not super necessary, but I did like that one because that was like them saying like, I'm going to build a mountain. And like that was what they were building to, is they wanted to build this life together and build this like, I don't know, maybe movement, but more at least like they wanted to build a life together, like their family together that go on the road and entertain people. But I agree, we didn't need to have every single one. We did it. Some of them were very unnecessary. Like the dancing on top of Hotel Arkham, as much as it was a really beautiful set piece that I really enjoyed the costuming and the way it was shot. And again, like this just it's a subjective take, is as like I like the tap dancing and all that stuff, and I could get something out of that. But that scene, I was like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was cool and like I enjoyed watching it. It definitely didn't need to be in there at all.
No,
And there are times where like I agree, like it interrupts the flow of the movie to have these singing scenes and I can't say that I necessarily completely felt the emotion of like him, like somewhat, but like him on the phone and Lee's got the gun to her head. And I was like, and like I was like, I feel like I should feel like more emotional, but I didn't necessarily. And I do think that some of the songs didn't necessarily tie very well into like what was being was trying to be communicated. But maybe I just need to go into the lyrics more. I don't really know. That's kind of one of those things that I'm like, I keep thinking about. I'm like, I don't
that's
know.
one where I feel like, subtitles would be fun to have like for this one. So I can like really dissect the lyrics.
Yeah.
But I totally agree. Not every song was necessary.
Yeah.
Go on.
No, I mean, but all right. So what else did I really like? I like that scene with him and Patty when he's getting interviewed for like the news.
Yeah.
I thought that was really a great scene. Obviously,
I agree. But again, that one plays into the fact that like he's got this personality hiding under him, you know, that he's this guy who can just like kind of let out Joker when he wants to.
Yeah. There were moments in the movie where like it almost felt like he was testing out his laugh in the back of the car, you know?
Right.
And then like, I agree. Like he kind of like could switch it on. But at the same time, and like I felt like they were kind of like, they were trying to play with your perception or your, I don't know, like, I guess they were trying to play with the fact that like maybe they are two separate entities. I've like, we both didn't buy that at all, but like, I think it still is fine when it comes to the end of the movie where basically he's like, I just am this. Like, I am both. I am this. There is no separate entity.
I guess why, again, I think it's because of how well the first movie was structured and made that I don't like that at all, because I think what worked so well, and I think what everyone, maybe I've already said this, we've been talking about this for a while, but but what everyone like was thinking when they saw Joker was like, oh, this is the origin of Joker. You know, like we can all walk away and be like, oh, anything could happen after this.
Yeah.
He could become a crazy Joker character, and that would be it. Whereas like this movie does everything in its power to like tell you that is not the case. Like, and then he straight up tells you, I'm not Joker. And what I heavily disagree with is that he's like, I wish I didn't kill those people, because I truly believe he wanted to. Like, and I think he took great joy in doing it. And I think that's what makes him this Joker character. I think you could tell. I mean, after each one, it felt like, maybe not after each one in the movie, but like he did that dance to like show you his joy, his like freedom, right? And you could tell he was a free person when he did those things. And I don't know. I don't feel like that's an act. I don't think that's something that character should regret.
Yeah, I mean that is a very good point. So to be honest, like that is still a lot of what they did with his character is still something that I'm like grappling with how I feel about it, because I agree. At the end of the first movie, he truly felt like that's who he wanted to be. Yeah, that's what he wanted to do. Also, that's what he felt like he had to do.
Right.
And I know like the ending, like I liked, because like he could just be like, you know, a broken man still who just is now unleashing like his, you know, violent tendencies, and or he could be this, he could be the Joker. I never really liked the idea of him, like people thinking, oh, now he can be like this maniacal evil Joker. I'm like, that's not what the movie.
I guess in my mind, he was a Joker. Like after the first movie, I felt like he would be a Joker that just like loved chaos. I think like, and I think maybe not chaos, like all kinds of chaos, but like doing the people that have wronged him, you know, wrong. And I think he loved feeling seen. And I don't think there was much that was going to stop that kind of want in him, other than, you know, I guess kind of being used over and over and over again in this movie.
Right. So, all right. So here's here's the thing that I struggle with, because what they also were trying to, I feel like they were trying to get out or get across was Joker, especially that first movie, but also for a long time, that character has been somebody that very problematic people in our society have gravitated towards that image, right?
Sure. Yep.
And there have been instances where somebody dressed up as that character have either threatened to do things or have done terrible things, as well as, I wouldn't call Arthur an incel necessarily, but you can see but in some ways, you know, like in this movie, he gets a girlfriend and now he's like, I'm all better now.
Right.
You know, but so he, I do feel, I feel like there was a part of this movie where they were kind of grappling with, when they were talking about the first movie, and how does somebody who becomes violent and does terrible things, how does this happen? And and the first movie did such a great job of illustrating how, like, a broken person and in a society that also is broken, how the two meet and they create something. They have somebody do terrible things, and I felt like in this movie, the realization, or at least the admittance of Arthur basically saying, like, give up the fantasy and just come to the realization, like, no, I did bad things. I'm a bad person. This is not something to, like, hide behind or I'd glorify. And I did feel like I did kind of like that. And I didn't think about this till Hannah brought it up, but I'm with you. I don't know. I think I know how you feel, but I'm partially there with you. Whereas where the ending happens, and I'm like, wow, okay. And so I was like, I don't know if I like that. But what she brought up is, when it comes to people who are, you know, school shooters, people who do these violent things, the guy that shanked Arthur at the end, he idolized him on TV and told that joke about what happens when you see, like, this pathetic clown that you used to idolize on TV. And what did he do? He enacted the same violence onto Arthur, because you have all these copycats, and that's typically what happens. And I was like, you know, if that was part of it, I think there was other things going on. At least I was reading that, like, they tried to, like, Joaquin and Todd were saying that there was, like, a warmth in that scene where, you know, Joaquin's Arthur was, like, smiling a little bit and was like, he still felt like there was hope or something. I don't exactly, like, there's some heady concepts that were,
I think it's more that he's living in his fantasy still at that point. You know, at the end, like, he's still fantasizing he's with Lee, right?
I don't, because, like, it's like, was Lee down there? Was there anybody down there who was visiting him? I don't know.
Yeah, who knows who that visitor was? That's a good question.
And again, like, there's the movie. What I also like, and this is, like, an unquantifiable thing, and it's just subjective. I appreciated that. Granted, I don't know how much of it is, like, they just did a poor job of, like, explaining to me, like, or, like, getting the point across of, like, what is going on, how do people feel about things, versus, like, just not holding my hand and having me, like, think about, like, I wonder what that could mean, and playing with the different themes of, like, movies and like, is this real? Is this not real? What did that mean? What did that symbolize? Like, it didn't exactly hold your hand, which I kind of appreciated. But at the end scene, as much as I'm torn about, like, now there's going to be an actual Joker, and because to me, I was like, no, I like Arthur as Joker, as being the only one. But then again, I'm torn because like I do appreciate the idea of like people copying each other, this violence thing. I don't know. I'm torn on it. I'm torn on it.
So I want to get into. I just want to explain my thoughts on the last like 20 minutes. I've already kind of explained my thoughts on like Arthur confessing that he doesn't like being Joker, or he's not actually Joker. The courthouse exploding.
Crazy choice.
I thought that was going to be Lee. It wasn't Lee. It was just his supporters. It seemed like he was trying to do something with Two-Face there, but very poorly. Like, like incredibly poorly.
Well,
and for no reason.
Why do you say poorly?
Because like the half of his face that was like kind of messed up was like barely messed up.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't really Two-Face.
Yeah.
But like Joker, why even try and set that up?
But first of all, I think that man is dead. First of all,
I mean, that would be a better outcome for him.
He might not. To me, I like that just because like nobody actually thinks that, you know, there's not gonna be another movie, but I don't think I just think it's a nice little like tribute to like, hey, Harvey Dent, like, yeah, that's like his face gets fucked up. So I liked it. My
problem with that is that the way he made these two movies and how like he wrapped it up, he very much does not care about the lore of DC. Like he's like he straight up is like doing his own thing, right? But in the first one, he does that cliche setting up, you know, Bruce Wayne to be an orphan. And kills Thomas and Martha in the in the alley, and then in this one he tries to do something with Harvey Dent, and then he tries to set up the Joker at the end, and I'm like, why are you doing these like fan, what do you call it, like appeasing the fans, like I don't know, but you know what I mean, fan service. Yeah, why are you doing these fan servicey scenes when like the rest of your story has nothing to do with those elements? Like that's what rubs me the wrong way. And then so the courtroom scene, happens, it explodes, and he escapes.
Real quick regarding the Bruce Wayne, like the murders. It was fan service, but I still think that scene is still playing into the whole concept of the movie, where people were enacting violence on innocent people just because they viewed the Waynes as these wealthy people who were keeping like the poor people down.
Sure.
And they went out with the inspiration of Arthur and gunned them down. And I thought that played into the narrative of the story. This, what you're talking about with Harvey, absolutely does not play. Absolutely does not play. But
not at all.
I didn't feel like it was like set up. It just felt like it was like a nice tribute moment. Just
like a nod. Yeah, sure.
I just like the nod.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, sure.
And
sure.
I'll let you.
No, I get it. But yeah, so he escapes and he basically goes around town, wandering until he finds Lee, and kind of begs for her to stay with him. And she's like, no, you gave up on our fantasy, and then walks away. And then the cops immediately show up and he's back in prison. And you're like,
right.
We already like understood that Lee was done. We saw her walk out of the courtroom. Like I don't personally, I didn't need the over explanation of her being like, I don't want to be with you anymore because you're not Joker. Like I understood. Maybe Arthur didn't understand, and maybe that's why they put it in. But like it was just another scene I didn't need, and it just made the courtroom scene so pointless. Like the explosion so pointless. And then obviously the ending pisses me off to no end. Like we just talked about it what these two movies are supposed to set up a new Joker, and then the peripheral, as he's bleeding out, he's cutting his face to like, it was so corny and dumb. I hated it. It was my least favorite scene in the entire movie. I hated it so much.
Yeah. I mean, look, that's a completely valid criticism.
Yeah.
I just think that like I'm a little torn about it. I'm just like I feel like I see and again, this is something that I might watch the original and just be like, yeah, they just, they really fucked it up,
I actually watched the first one a couple hours before I watched Joker Folie Do. So that was a nice kind of back to back.
And that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Maybe I will continue to find reasons why everybody's wrong, and maybe no, I'm kidding. But I don't think everybody's wrong at all.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. But I do like, or it's something that I'll be like, yeah, I don't know. It really makes me think about like, I don't know. I'm still kind of wrapping my head around it. I don't know when. Hope one day I'll have a definitive, feeling about it. And to a certain extent, like I will defend the fact that this movie has editing problems for sure. And I agree with what you're saying to a certain extent about the courthouse being blown up and then he immediately goes back to jail. I feel like what they were trying to do with that last scene was we are both outside now. We are both free to do what we want.
There's nothing stopping us.
There is absolutely nothing stopping us. And she's still like, as long as you are not Joker and you're not feeding this fantasy, I don't want to be with you. And so it's just like another like him,
I can get that.
Just another thing going wrong for him.
Right. Another one.
And again, only because you're the second person I've talked to about this. Hannah brought up she was like, I don't know how I feel about Harley. That's not the Harley that, I would.
No, that's not Harley Quinn. Yeah.
And she brought up like, well, typically it's because the Joker, and I'm not harshing on my girlfriend. I've talked to her about this. And she was like, typically the Joker like influences her and she was really smart and like she was in psychology. And I was like, I mean, but that all happened. Like, absolutely he influenced her because.
Yeah, but it was. I don't know. To me, it felt more like she was the manipulator in this relationship, whereas Joker was always a manipulator of her.
I know, but like I like the kind of role reversal in a way, but it's still okay. So here's my thought process. She is studying to get her like psych degree or whatever.
I think she already got it in the movie.
Or she got it. Yeah,
she already got it. Yeah.
She's smart,
right?
And she saw him on TV and saw that he did something that she's like, I wish I could do something like that. Became infatuated with him, which you could argue is like, yeah, her like getting influenced by him, self-admitted herself into that place, lied, yes, to make herself seem like relatable. She wanted him to like her so bad that she like boosted what she had done. But it wasn't complete lie because she did kind of watch the movie a bunch and she did like, I forget what the other things that she said, but like she just wanted him to like her. I don't think there was anything wrong. I think what happened was she bought in, and that's like the Folie do, like the shared madness. Like she bought in, she wanted to buy into the fantasy.
Right.
And so she was enabling his bad mental health and his worst tendencies. Yeah. As instead of like doing it the more problematic. I mean, they're both problematic, but the more problematic way of him, being like, I'm gonna gaslight you all the time.
Sure.
So I thought it was an interesting take on Harley Quinn. Personally,
it is a very unique take.
I liked it.
I think it's probably my least favorite Harley Quinn take so far, but I don't necessarily hate it. I'm not like that she is not the problem I have with this movie, but I would have liked a little more closeness to what she usually is. I would have, and I would have really enjoyed. Like, I think it is interesting for her to be, committing herself to this insane asylum, but I would have really enjoyed,
which is crazy,
right? That is crazy, but I would have really enjoyed seeing her be in her normal role of being like of working at the insane asylum, and like and maybe that's something that like has already happened prior to the movie, is that like he has already manipulated her a bunch and like they're already kind of falling in love. I don't know, but like I think I would have enjoyed that equally, if not more, than what we got.
Yeah, and to be clear, when I had imagined this movie, when they were talking about it, this is not what I would have imagined.
Oh no, not at all. Not
right.
At all. No.
So this is not. I'm saying this is not what I was I was thinking it would be. This is not how I probably would have wanted it to go. But it is what we got, and I still.
And you're not unhappy, right?
And I'm not unhappy. It's some things I'm kind of unhappy about. I'm still torn. But somebody did bring up. I was watching like Jeremy Johns talk about it in like a spoiler talk about it, and he was saying like, there's the criticism like Todd Phillips owed everything to Taxi Driver and King of Comedy with the first one, and I'm like, yeah, the influences are there. I'll give you that. And then he went, maybe he was like, I'm just not going to be influenced by anything, which I don't think is true. I probably just haven't seen anything.
I almost feel like he just wanted to go in the exact opposite direction of the first movie. That's this movie feels like the exact opposite of Joker 1.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
But I did when he brought up like, maybe some inspiration from something like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest would have been helpful. And I'm like, you know what? There were parts, but like if he really...
I haven't seen that movie, by the way.
Yeah, okay. You should. But like if there were parts where we were getting more of the life in Arkham and him relating or having conversations and interactions with other inmates and Harley.
I would have loved to see more point of view from Harley, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think putting her as more of a main character would have helped this movie. But I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But yeah, we've been talking about this one for quite a while. Yeah. I think that's my thoughts on this one. I don't know about you.
I just hope that what I have brought up is just like with an open mind, and maybe I've illuminated just a little bit of a different perspective that maybe just like you think about it just maybe a little different for like a minute, and then whatever, you can like whatever. Because like I agree with everything, like most everything that you said. But for some reason, I'm just like, I still had a pretty good time. Like if I don't rate things, but if I had to rate it, like I'd probably give it a C+.
Okay.
Like
I didn't go
B.
And do my usual like 0 to 100 is what I usually do. But I did a 0 out of 10, and I gave it a 5.
Yeah.
I because I do respect some of the choices they made. I don't hate everything in this movie.
I really thought you were gonna hate
I just like it for sure. I can't say I hate it because it does some things right, but for the most part,
yeah.
And maybe I am being too nice. I don't know, because like my review has been pretty harsh on this movie. And my opinion is a little harsh, but I don't absolutely hate it. I dislike it. Yeah.
I just
but yeah, those are our thoughts. Appreciate you all sitting for that long review. But yeah, now we want to speak to another DC property that was announced. This one is called The Dynamic Duo. It was confirmed by James Gunn earlier this week, or maybe late last week. And this is going to be a story about Dick Grayson and Jason Todd the first two Robins. And well, so the first report that we got was that this was going to be like them younger and as orphan thieves. But apparently the report about them being thieves has been proved false at this point. So we don't know kind of where they are in their lives. Like we don't know, I guess, if it's going to be them as younger teens or, if Dick Grayson will be Nightwing yet already. But yeah, this is produced by Matt Reeves and James Gunn, and it's not set in Matt Reeves' DC universe. Most likely will be set in James Gunn's DC universe. And it's going to be a mix of CGI animation, puppetry, and I guess animation, puppetry, and CGI is what they're saying.
Yeah.
And some live action real time performance. I can't recall the name of the studio who's working on it. I don't know if you have that, but
nope.
I saw a reel.
Is it not DC Studios?
Well, it's like the animation studio, I should say.
Okay.
They basically do this style quite a bit of like this kind of puppetry and CGI and like
gotcha.
And so it's a really interesting style, and I don't think I've really ever seen a superhero story filmed or told in that style of animation and like kind of like almost like stop motion, it feels like. So I'm very curious. I think that's an exciting medium to play with, and I can't recall a story ever like fully focusing on just like Dick Grayson and Jason Todd. So that's another exciting element for me as well.
Yeah. I'm still wondering if this is going to be a part of the DCU. I feel like maybe it is, but
it's gotta be, right?
There's a big, I mean, because like Matt Reeves, I feel like they're just like, yeah, anything Batman, give it to Matt Reeves. It's just to produce.
Pretty much.
Because like he was a producer for that Cape Crusader show, and he's been a producer, and
he was going to write the Arkham Asylum show for James Gunn's DCU, and then that got canceled.
Right. So. And he's had his thing with Penguin. He's doing Batman 2,
and he's doing other spinoffs for the Batman apparently.
Apparently, yeah.
Right.
So, and like James Gunn being attached makes me feel like it's a part of the DCU, and it's the next like animated show that they're gonna put out.
Right.
It still might not be. It might be a new, it might be a new DC animated movie, and we're moving past the, really mid to terrible animated movies that they keep pumping out every year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Granted, I have not seen Watchmen yet. I will get around to it one day.
Did that already come out already?
It did.
Oh, I didn't
but
even know.
you have to buy it, I think.
Oh, well, yeah, I'm watching that.
I'm like, yeah. Okay. If it's I can't imagine that they're both Robin at the same time.
No, I mean, like, how would that make? I mean, you would have to fully alter the universe for basically Batman would have to have two Robins at the same time.
Yeah,
and so that's never been done.
What I think will be the case is either Jason as Robin or just Red Hood, and then without a doubt, Dick Grayson is just Nightwing at this point.
Yeah, I have a theory.
Okay, what's the theory?
So I was gonna say that. So I think it's definitely gonna be Dick Grayson as Nightwing. I still think Jason Todd will be Robin. And that might not make sense in the sense that like we know Damian Wayne, I think, is going to be Robin in this universe.
Yeah.
But I still think it could be like, let's go back in time in this universe and like really learn who our heroes were when they were younger.
Right.
And I think it would be really, really cool if they adapted this comic for Batman called Batman the Cult. And
don't know that one.
Yeah, that's one where Batman is kidnapped by the Blackfire group, like Damian Blackfire. And like he's going through this like psychological torture this entire time, but like Jason Todd and Dick Grayson like have to team up and kind of help save Batman.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I mean, logically, these like Batman is going to exist in this universe regardless, you know, and I don't think this is like a point where you could like adapt a comic where like those two are fighting for like the cowl of the Batman.
Yeah.
Because that has been done. But I feel like we could get there at some point, but I think this is going to be like a younger or like an earlier time in the DC universe, and they're going to have to like work together for the first time.
Yeah.
That's I mean, and I don't know, and maybe the name The Dynamic Duo is like more of a sarcastic like title for them. And they're not really dynamic, right?
Right. Yeah, so, or because Jason and him and Dick would obviously have some tension.
Yeah, I mean they're pretty much the opposite of Robins, you know? Like one is very straight-laced and like a leader, and the other is pretty much like free and wild and does whatever he wants.
Yeah.
So I think that's an exciting pairing.
Yeah, I do too. I also think that, again, going back to what we were saying about the Bane and Deathstroke movie that's in the works, and the fact that, you know, Superman is having a lot of inspiration from Justice League International and having, you know, weird characters that you've never seen before in live action. And we're having this Lantern show where we're having an older Hal Jordan and a new recruit, kind of like Jon Stewart. Like I think
every single show and movie is like at least two people teaming up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even besides that, I think it's just really refreshing that, like, going back to Joker 2, like just kind of taking these ideas that we know already, and it's like, well, we've seen this plenty of times. I could make it on the live action on the screen, the way that we've seen it in comic books and animated form. But let's just take these characters and just do something new with them. It's still the same characters. We're just gonna pick up with them at different points in their life, and they're interacting with characters that we don't see. Like, if you're gonna see Nightwing, like, you would immediately think, well, the first time we'll see Nightwing is with Batman, and that's, you know, we'll never see him team up with like a Red Hood. But it's like, no, we're gonna get Red Hood and Nightwing together
potentially. Right.
Well, but at least those two characters, Jason Todd and Dick Grayson, will have together for the first time in their own show. And the first Robin that we'll get is Batman's son. You know, so it's just, I just find it really refreshing, even though it's not the traditional way of you would probably build up the universe.
No, but like I think
it's cool.
Yeah, I agreed. And like that story of Batman at the beginning without any of the Bat family has been told over and over and over and over again. And it's just like with gosh, what was it? I don't know. I mean, like there's been movies recently that like Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Like that one skipped the origin because we've seen it so many times. And this one is skipping past all of like the big Batman stuff so that we already have the Bat family.
Yeah.
And I think that's a necessary thing. Like I think it's time to tell that side of the story for Batman, see a different light for him, you know?
As a dad.
Yeah.
As
him
a
and Damien, that's going to be
dad.
exciting. Yeah.
But
like I you know, and I don't think this is the case. Like if this were to come out after like Brave and the Bold, you could see like Jason and Dick, like if Batman, like I don't know, that'd be a crazy move if like Batman dies in the Brave and the Bold movie. But like you could see them fight. But like the fact that it's this kind of like stop motion animation thing makes me believe that's not going to be the case. That's just not the right medium for it. To have Jason and like Dick fight for like the Bat cowl, like that's there's no way that like they're doing that.
No. And I think that this possibly means that those two show up in that movie.
Oh yeah, I don't doubt it. Yeah,
which is crazy.
I'd love it so much.
Nightwing in
Yeah.
a movie. Ooh.
Nightwing, Red Hood, Robin, all together. I love it. Yeah. Well, James Gunn is cooking for sure. I'm a fan of everything that's been announced so far for the DC universe. But yeah, let's move on to another pretty huge topic here.
Let's talk about toxic fans.
Yeah, I'll let you introduce this one.
So there was an article in Variety that came out recently, and they were talking about how studios are kind of combating what they're calling toxic fandom. And I thought that the article was presenting some very, I don't want to say interesting because it's not a real word. I think.
Wait, what do you mean interesting is not a real word?
It's just like, oh, that's interesting. It doesn't actually, like it just forces you to not use your brain. You can just be like, yeah, it's interesting.
Okay, yeah, I get what you mean.
I thought they were bringing up a lot of
interesting.
They were bringing up a lot of points that I agree with and disagree with, and I kind of want to get into it. So basically, they were touching on how at the beginning of the article they were talking about how the actress that plays May and Osha from The Acolyte wasn't surprised that the show had been canceled. Because ever since 2020 or near so when it got announced, and maybe when they got hired as an actor, that they were, receiving all these, this negativity and threats and yada, yada, yada. And it basically is, went back to like, let's talk about toxic fandom and basically how review bombing really took off with I think it was The Last Jedi, and how it's gone on to, people review bombing The Boys and The Marvels and House of the Dragon, and The Last of Us, where, the House of the Dragon had 2 female characters kissing, and then there was a Last of Us episode featuring a gay couple.
Right.
And so all of that there, I vehemently hate that there's become this is a truly terrible toxic portion of
basically
fandom.
Whenever there's like a big show or movie that comes out and there's anything that's like homoerotic or with a minority, everyone's like, oh, I fucking hate this. And it's like, that is the worst. And like the fact that, and I don't think this is the only reason they're forming these groups like to combat toxic fandom, but like the fact that they would hear those people's input on things like that really does bother me, because like it's so not needed, because there's such a loud minority that side,
Right. So basically, they are talking about ahead of some of the studios that at least decided that they would talk about it on the article.
Right.
We're basically saying we have tried a bunch of different tactics. One strategy is basically don't respond, don't give them oxygen, and they've only been lifting up and responding to positive reactions and thoughts.
Right.
But yeah, so basically their idea is let's bring in these super fans, is I think what they were calling them.
Yep.
And the kind of like focus groups of such. And this is where I get torn about. They want to bring them in either hopefully like while they're in the stage
the
of
editing
like
process, right?
Well, like the producing the ideas, or like at least some process, like, because they talk about like, well, sometimes we've been able to bring them in when there's been enough time to change something, and then we change something. I have 2 thoughts on it. Well, maybe 2 or 3. One, if the people that these studios are bringing in to give input as to whether they should do something or not, and we're basing them off of the people who are review bombing because two gay characters or a minority character does something or kisses.
Right.
Terrible idea. Horrible idea. Why would you do that? But I don't know if that's necessary. Hopefully, it's not the case.
Right.
What I'm hoping it is that there, as much as there's the terrible side of the review bombing, there is, and we are part of it, where it's like, no, legitly, you're doing terrible things to the things we love.
Yeah.
And partially, I'm like, this could be a good idea. It really depends on who you're asking, because when you like for Boba Fett, for example, you only had to make him the most badass person. That was your only job.
And you did the opposite, right?
And you destroyed that character. I cannot stand to look at Boba Fett sometimes after what they did.
I agreed. And here's the thing, like I've like that like if they were to have feedback on that kind of stuff, that's what I've been arguing for years. I'm like, you have all of these people, like you know where their opinions are. Like bring in a group and have them consult on this fandom that they care so much about.
Yes.
And then you can go into a better spot in writing or an entirely different direction if you know the overall majority is not going to be happy with it. And like I would say the same about Acolyte. I don't think that was a product of like that being canceled. I don't think it's a product of like toxic fandom. Yeah. I think there was a definitely a loud minority that were a toxic fandom in that, but like the Acolyte was just bad. And like if people were brought in to help write the show in a better way, I think that would have really benefited it. Yeah. And
that's what they go into here. Like John Van Sitters, who is a Star Trek brand development head or vice president since like the 1990s, was quoted, "The number of people who live and die on their franchises are very, very few. And then those who come after things that they espouse to love with venom are a really, really tiny subset of that already smaller subset of fandom. It's just easier to see it now." And the thing that worries me about the article in most of this never talks about that there are fans who are upset because you have people making things, Disney, for example, making things like Star Wars, like Marvel, who don't actually, doesn't feel like they actually care about what they're making, and they're just like half-assing it, or like have some sort of, I don't know, maybe yes, they do want to focus more on a female character, but like that is the only thing that it seems like they cared about, and they just want, and then they tell a story that's like just bad. And I don't give a shit, like, have a female character. I like Rey. I think Rey is just in terrible fucking movies.
I mean, I didn't think the character Rey was bad until the really horrible movie that came out at the end.
Because they wrote just dribble, like just shit. Yeah. And so, but the article only kind of goes into the toxicness of like, well, these people are going to get mad if we have a black person in there. So like we should listen. Maybe what they're quoting when they're saying like, they will just tell us if you do that, fans are going to retaliate.
Like at that point, I mean, wouldn't you just look at those people as like, well, you're just, I mean, aren't you racist at that point? Like if you're telling me that like, oh, well, fans are not going to react well to this black character. I'm like, well, like there's almost no world where like a minority couldn't exist in. Like you would have to create something so specific for that to be the case.
And I'm really hoping that they're talking about like what we're trying to say, which is like, look, if you make Boba Fett chase around a droid in Jabba's old kitchen and say, I am Boba Fett, we're gonna hate it.
If you have Fennec Shand speaking for him the whole time and him bending to the will of every other opinion, then everyone's gonna hate it. Right.
And if you have him get into his ship and be like, I don't know where my armor is. Maybe I should go back to the place where I got sucked into a Sarlacc pit and go look for it.
And then wasn't there. But yeah.
Because he had it on him when he got out of it.
Right.
And then is very surprised when the monster grabs his ship and tries to kill him again. We're not going to like it.
No. We won't. Yeah, and maybe Mandalorian season 3 could have been fixed in that way. Like maybe
if you have Jack Black just play Jack Black in a Star Wars show and have Lizzo just be Lizzo, yeah, we're not probably going to be into it as much.
Or maybe somebody could have told Disney that if you bring back Grogu, people won't be happy that you just trashed the ending of Mandalorian season 2. I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't. And the other thing is, I don't think fans are always right. You know.
Sure.
I think that, it's like, okay, we can take that suggestion and then do with what we will.
Right.
But I don't know. Part of me, I'm like, look, if this is, I feel like I'm just concerned that they quoted all of this like, well, we hated Captain Marvel and review bombed it in 2019. Not me, but other people.
Yeah.
When it was just a bunch of most likely guys just being upset that there is a female superhero. An all-female
superhero team, right?
Well, I'm just going back to 2019 with Captain Marvel.
Oh, with Captain Marvel. Yeah, that was a really weird review bombing. Yeah.
It's because they just hated women.
Yeah, I mean,
feel like.
that was it. I mean, well, because I don't think the movie had really come out at that point. So
no, they just started review bombing it.
Yeah, they just review bombed it without even seeing it.
Or The Boys is like woke garbage.
Right.
And that's been happening for a minute. And
but that's not my problems with season 4 of The Boys. So I'm hoping they don't scale back on that kind of because I think the political commentary is good in The Boys. I don't think it's bad. Right.
Yeah, I ideally, like you said, it would be nice to have fans a part of the creation process, people who really care about the thing.
Right.
But if we're talking about fans that are known to review bomb shit in the past
and then lead to toxic fandom, then why would you give them a voice? I don't understand that.
Just so you can avoid the pushback or to review. I'm like, I don't know. You could stop it. If you just did everything that they wanted, you should stop it. Maybe, unless they find something else to be upset about. But at that point, you are bending all of your choices to a very small subset of people who are very small-minded and potentially or are, hateful
racist
people.
And sexist and
And your shows are just going to be white cis people doing white cis people things, and it'll stay that way until you try to change it, then they'll get mad at you again.
Right. Yeah, it'll be a never-ending cycle. Yeah. So let's not give in to those people. Let's just give in to the fans who really care about changing things that we kind of complained about here.
Yeah, I think it should be look, just as long as it's story-based, take that. Take the story-based or the lore-based critiques and just that's it. Everything else, it doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter who the character is, what they look. Yeah, for the most part, it doesn't matter what they look like. It doesn't matter where they come from, how they talk, whatever the fuck. Just focus on who is Boba Fett.
right.
At the core of it. This whole has just been a way for me to
vent about Boba Fett.
To vent about Boba Fett because I fucking hate that show.
It's bad. It's bad, and it's why I skipped the first 4 episodes when watching it this past time. So, yep.
At that point, it's just Mandalorian 2.5.
Yeah, I mean that's the only reason I go to it at this point.
Yeah,
because those, I mean, episodes 6 or 5 and 6, they're really good.
They are good.
Yeah. I totally, we couldn't be on more on the same page. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's that. we also wanted to talk about Juror number 2 trailer that came out recently. This was a really exciting surprise. I've been hearing about this. Didn't know who was going to be in it, and was pleasantly surprised that this stars Nicholas Hoult. Has J.K. Simmons in this as well.
Tony Collette.
Yep. But this is directed by Clint Eastwood, and will be coming out November 1st of this year.
How old is that man now?
I think he's got to be 92, I'm going to guess.
Man is 94.
Whew. Yeah. So from what I heard, I mentioned his process earlier. I heard he does filming for like from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. and then just like that's
crashes.
It. Well, no, so he like they'll end for lunch and then that's the day. Like that's it. And so, but apparently like he's probably right. But like apparently he has this group that's like been working on with movies for like years now, and like it's just a well-oiled production that only needs to go 6 hours a day, which is so different from like every other Hollywood production.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
But this was a really I'd like to say well filmed and well directed trailer. It's just
good story idea too.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the story for Juror number 2 is that this man on the way home, from the bar hits something, gets out of his car, doesn't really see a lot of damage, doesn't see what he hit. So he goes home, goes on with his life. He gets called in to jury duty, and he's somewhat, I don't know if he quickly realizes, but he starts to realize that the case that he's a juror on is something that he's potentially he should be the defendant for. And he starts to put the pieces together that he is possibly the person who hit this woman on the way home and killed her. And it's, I don't know, like the tension in the trailer like builds throughout it. It like you can feel how serious this movie is, and I don't know, like the whole thing looks like a work of art to me. Like it's really well directed, and yeah, I agree.
I by the way, if he did hit this woman, I don't know the laws of like being a driver in that situation, like who would be at fault, but I can't imagine that like he would be at fault in that, but maybe he would. I don't know.
Two things kind of implicate him. One, I think he was drunk. Like you saw him drinking at the bar.
Jesus, no.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, they didn't really show that he was like stumbling or anything, but like he had a drink in his hand at the bar. And then he also did like look down at his phone. Like obviously that's not like the biggest of crimes, but like two things kind of resulted in the death of this woman that he can't say he's totally innocent for, you know?
I also feel like the boyfriend who the girl was having the arguments with,
right?
I got the vibe that he might have been a popular person, like a well-known person.
Oh yeah, okay.
And
I didn't get that vibe.
People really didn't like him, so there's also a bit of like he should go away for this.
Right.
Like this should be the thing that gets him down, and then there's also Nicholas Hoult being like, I think I actually killed her. And then everyone's just going to hate him for it, but also like hate him because he killed somebody.
Right. No, but I mean, Nicholas Hoult, I think he's going to kill it in this. Like this, just the scenes we saw where he's like coming to it and like telling his, like, I think maybe his lawyer, I don't know who he's talking to, where he's like, maybe I didn't hit a deer, you know? And I don't know, like that is like a horrifying realization you could come to, that you accidentally killed somebody. Like that is insane. And yeah, I think this is going to be another like classic hit movie, because like the premise is so good, and like I think Clint Eastwood
it's gonna be a hit.
Yeah,
it's gonna be a classic hit movie
for sure. Well, yeah, literally and figuratively. Yeah.
It's gonna like smash the box office.
I think it'll at least make. What do we have the budget on this? No, but I do think it'll at least make 100 million. I think that'll be the case.
Opening day.
I hope the Thursday night premiere is gonna be 100 million.
You said hit movie.
Yeah, no, like here's like
Blockbuster.
I think if I'm gonna say this budget is maybe like 20 million at most, like at most. I don't think this is a big budget movie. So I feel like 100 million being made, that's a hit movie, like on that kind of a budget.
33.
Oh, okay. That's surprising. I think it could make 150 million, and I think that's still a hit movie.
I don't think that this passes 50 to 60.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, if like we've seen it where like word of mouth does so much for a movie.
Yeah.
And like if this is reviewed incredibly well, and like, you know, people love Nicholas Hoult. Like I know he's not like an A-lister, but like I think he can draw in people, and I think a Clint Eastwood movie will draw in some people too.
I know, but like, yeah, I agree. But like, yeah. I also heard nothing but good things about Transformers 1, and it just has been doing terrible.
You're right. Yeah, I mean, and everyone was talking up Furiosa earlier this year, and that did terrible too. So,
I don't know.
Yeah. Sometimes word of mouth can't save a movie. You're right. But sometimes it can do wonders.
I hope it does. I hope it makes 200 million.
I would love that. Yeah, because like these, I think, are the kind of movies that like we're not getting all the time, and I think like something. I know it's not like incredibly unique, but like following a story like about like a normal world and like this normal person going through like real things. I think like a lot of people would find that I find it refreshing.
Yeah.
And
I do too. I mean, right. I know we talk a lot about, more fan, like
right.
genre based movies, but I have found myself, over the years, just getting a bit more drawn into other things. Like, for example, I've been watching that Paul Giamatti, John Adams miniseries, and I'm fucking loving it, man.
Do I know that one? I don't think I do.
All you got to know is that it's Paul Giamatti, and he's playing
Paul
John
Giamatti's
Adams.
killing it. Right. That's great.
And it's like, I'm watching John Adams. I'm watching documentaries about World War II. I'm turning into a 40-year-old man. Okay.
Right. But I mean, like, one of my favorite movies in recent memory is like Whiplash. And that is just a straight up like, it's not a documentary, obviously, but it's just about normal people and this normal kid, but he's like incredibly great at drumming. And he's, I mean, we all know what Whiplash is, but like, it's not an out of the box idea. Yeah. That's like so crazy.
Or
and
like Oppenheimer, or, I showed my girlfriend, The King's Speech, which is one of my favorite movies. Mm-hmm. And that's just about the king, the Duke of York, who eventually became the King of England, but he had a stutter issue. And it was during World War II that he had to like fix his stutter because he was going to be the king. And it's this incredible story with Colin Firth.
That's neat. Yeah.
It sounds like it's not exciting and it's boring, but it's so good.
Nice. That sounds really interesting. Yeah. That word again.
It's not a word. It's not a word.
But it does sound really interesting.
Wow. It sounds really... Would you finish the sentence? Because I don't know. It sounds really, and then I hear nothing. Because you just said nothing.
It sounds really captivating to me.
Captivating.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'll say. Okay. If you don't like, I guess that word is banned now, unless it's an adjective.
It is a banned word,
unless you're describing something else. Interestingly. Something, right? Yeah. But yeah, I would very much recommend watching this trailer. It comes out within a month.
Oh God, it does. Yeah.
And yeah, it's got a killer cast. So, hopefully I'll be able to see that one.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah, last up on our list is the review for the episode 3 of The Penguin, and some light talk about episode 2.
Yep.
Since we didn't get to talk about it last week. But yeah, I mean, The Penguin has just gotten better week after week, man. It's so good. Some things I want to touch on in episode 2. I love the whole the whole episode, like he was working everyone. Like he worked the Maronis, and then he's working Sophia the entire time. And yeah, I mean I love the scene with the where Oz is setting up the Falcons, with the Maroni stealing the drops.
Yeah.
I thought that was an amazing scene where like VD forces him to get into the front truck, and he's got to improvise his way out of that. And like he saves Sophia's bodyguard, and it's just, that's great. And then, he has this kind of plot with getting this guy back for the Maronis, but he has to improvise it because Vic fucked up. And now he's got to kill this guy, and he plants the murder weapon on Sophia's bodyguard. I mean, like, it's just, the whole thing was so like, he's flying by the seat of his pants, but like he is working it so well. It's beautiful to watch.
Yeah,
it's so fun.
Yeah. I don't know if I can add, because I agree.
Right. But then, but yeah, like I loved the ending of the episode 2 was great, where like Sophia finally comes around and she's like, hey, let's work something. Let's do something together. And I don't know, I love those two coming together. And then like
they have such great chemistry together.
They do. Like they're destined to hate each other, but like they are so good together. I love it. And yeah, and episode 3 is the episode of them fully teaming up. And but it's also the episode where we get a lot of backstory and story around Vic. And that was like surprisingly maybe my favorite part of the entire episode, was like learning so much about Vic. Like I truly loved like that whole opening scene where like we got to meet his family, and then he was up on top of the roof with his girlfriend partying with a bunch of people. And then like I don't know why, but I wasn't expecting that to be the moment for the bombs. I don't know why. And it shocked the hell out of me.
Yeah.
And it was yeah, I mean, it was a devastating thing to watch. And I was like, oh shit, yeah, this does happen to Vic. But yeah,
what's really I don't want to say that word.
Cool. It's really cool.
No, what I found to be really affecting is that when we watch the Batman and the walls, the seawalls break or whatever, and the city gets flooded, you're like, oh shit, like it's flooding, like
right.
Oh, that
but we don't
sucks.
see how it's like affecting most of Gotham, right?
Yeah, like you're just like, oh no, like there's water in the streets. That sucks. I mean, like,
right.
Yeah, there were people in peril, but it didn't feel as devastating as it's one of those things where it's when you focus in on just a family, that's what is more devastating, because you're seeing somebody's life and the people he loves, and then finding empathy and for them, right. And like
his whole life just gets ripped out from him.
And then just like the impact of like the water just going into their apartment building, and yeah, so when that happened, it was just like it was just, I just found it to be very emotional, and that what the Riddler didn't so much, it felt less like, I don't know.
Yeah,
for lack of a better word, like comic book, like, oh, I'm gonna break down the seawalls and interrupt a bunch of things. It felt like, oh, I caused pain and suffering.
Right, but I also feel like it caused less of like it made Riddler not as right as he like was trying to be. Like I don't think he wanted to affect those kind of people in Gotham, but he ended up hurting them the most. And because like Crown Point is pretty much the only place they talk about that's like completely wiped out the map.
Yeah.
Or wiped off the map. And so, yeah, I think it kind of recontextualizes the Batman a little bit, which is cool.
Yeah.
But I also love that scene later on where Vic has like real trauma. Like he has like PTSD basically. And when he's in the club, he hears these like loud I don't know, you couldn't call them explosions in the club, but like he basically feels like they are.
Yeah.
And you know, he basically is seeing the bombs and he drops all the drugs that he's holding and they're like vibrating in the exact same way as like the pebbles were. Like it was really well done to bring it all that full circle. And I love that, like that's kind of what pushes him over the edge into leaving Oz like initially. So yeah, I mean like all of Vic's story in this episode was just perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like his relationship with Gabrielle.
Gabrielle?
I
don't know. I can't
but it wasn't like incredible, but I appreciate.
I enjoyed seeing a girlfriend for him, right?
Yeah, and I felt like when I think what was more affecting was like, I'm on my way, I'm at the bus, and you're
right.
Yeah, and just him like trying to talk in the car beforehand. He's like, it's like this there's this person who I care about, and
he never gets the opportunity until it's too late.
But like while he was saying that, I was like, he's gonna kill you, and he's just like,
what's so surprising
he's
though
gonna kill me.
Is that like I agree. I thought he was gonna kill him too, but then he's like, I've never like wanted to force you to stay. I thought like this was a mutual benefit, you know.
Yeah.
I thought I was really helping you, but you felt like I had a gun to your head the whole time.
Oh my god, that scene in the bathroom.
I genuinely didn't expect that side of Oz. Like I thought he really was kind of like half using him so that he, you know, had control so that Vic couldn't like rat on him later on, right? And I think you see that like at the bar scene afterwards, like he truly thinks of Vic as like someone who's really close. I mean, I don't know if it's family or not, but like he really cares about him.
He does.
And I thought that was really nice to see that like Oz actually has a heart, you know?
Yeah. And I think it says a lot when he's like, I could go on the bus, and he just decides to not.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what was powerful in like giving him the girlfriend was that like you got to see that he could have this life that I think the old him would want. But now I think he realizes he can make something for himself.
Which like they do hint at the beginning, like it because when he was saying like, isn't this what you want? Like, you know, and he was like telling his dad, like, don't you want more than this? And
Sure. But I don't think Vic ever envisioned him doing like the things he's doing to get there.
No.
Which is where I think like he's struggling, right?
But I do think that like it was interesting, like Oz was saying, like your dad would be proud of you, and he's like,
would he? Right. Yeah, because I don't think he would be. Yeah. But now Oz is kind of like his dad, so Oz is proud of him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the rest of the episode though, we quickly kind of get Oz introduced into this Bliss drug business.
Which, by the way, I was like, Scarecrow, maybe it's Hugo Strange, and then I was like, all right, no, it's just a drug that they use to sedate people in Arkham, which is cool. I'm down with it.
I think
cool.
I think they really heavily explain the lore behind it, and I thought that was really dope.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, I don't have any problem. I mean, I was just surprised. I think that they went that in depth with like, well, it's these things at the top of the shrooms that like we get, and it turns our mind off and makes us submissive. And I was like, all right, cool. But then Oz has the idea to get the triads in to distribute it. And then he needs Vidi to kind of complete this connection with the triads. And I mean, so they don't really waste much time with getting some. I mean, they already had the knowledge that he was sleeping with Luca Falcone's wife,
right?
But they walk in on him because they make a deal with the wife, and we get another scene where like his character is insulted and he loses it just like he did on Alberto. And I was like, Yeah, I like this. I like this is like his one button that you don't push with Oz, you know? Um, but yeah, I love that VD's kind of been put in his place. He's been a real piece of shit this season. And yeah, he fully falls in line. Yeah, and I had thought before the episode, I was like, oh, he's really got to do some work with like the Maronis to like, but you know, and then I forgot while I was watching it, and then you know at the very end they show up out of nowhere.
Before that though,
okay.
like
oh yeah, we did kind of skip a scene where like they're negotiating. You're right.
Yeah, so like they negotiate.
Yeah,
they pull the fucking thing off. You know, Sophia like. She's like, I can't tell like who wants this more, like me or you.
Yeah.
And there's this whole, you know, I can't wait to see the flashback to like him being the driver for her and what's going on with all that stuff.
Yeah.
And she's just like this whole their history and like their relationship is so interesting because he's so, you know, is playing different things, but is also like genuine at times and cares and she, I like there's a part of her that like wants to trust him and she even says like, I just don't know how I to trust you again.
Right, I mean, like
and
when he caused the worst thing in his entire life or her entire life.
Yeah, and she's like, I don't know how to trust you again. He's like, well, just let me continue to show you how. And then
great line.
Boom, the Maronis show up.
But even before we get into that though, I do want to say like I still am struggling to tell if Oz is at all sincere, like when he's talking with Sophia. Because like he acts like it for sure. I mean, like the way he was getting emotional at the end when he's like, yeah, I did what I needed to do for me. But there's not like a day in my life where I
regret it. A man like me. Oh my God. I was like,
oh, yeah. I was like, wow, you have some balls to say that. But I think he felt like he could because like the criticism of him was that he always says the right things. And I think she needed to see a realer side of him.
Yeah, maybe.
But
then it just leaves her.
Well, I think like we don't know exactly what the Maronis said to them, but like the entire deal with the Maronis almost outs like Oz as Alberto's killer. So like things could have been real fucked up at that point. And maybe that's why he was like, we got to go. Like, just screw it. Let's just get out of here, Vic, and we'll deal with it. But yeah, I mean, I almost feel like if some stuff was let out of the bag, then like it's pretty much over. Like those two are never working together again.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how they work together in the next episode at all with him just ditching her like that.
I can't imagine they do. And I feel like most of the next episode is going to be like flashback.
Or it's just going to be them on the run right now because he was like, we're really in it now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I don't know if you saw the previews for next week though.
I didn't.
It looks like we're going to be seeing like Sophia younger. And this is when like Mark Strong comes in as her dad.
Okay.
So I don't know. I mean, I know some of it's going to be a little flashbacky next episode. But who knows if it's going to be the entire thing.
Right.
But yeah, I think we're going to get to see Oz as the driver like you're wanting. So that'll be great. Yeah.
It just keeps turning in all these really interesting directions. And it's just keeping me on my fucking toes.
Yeah, it's pretty great. And we got 5 episodes left. So I just like every time like we get to a boiling point with Sophia and Oz, I'm like, how is there 5 more episodes? You know, like, yeah. I mean, after the first episode, I was like, how are we doing 7 more episodes of this?
If they can keep this up, I mean, this will be like a show for the fucking books. Like,
yeah, it could easily be top 3 shows of the year right now for sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's a review. We are very happy with the show, and we'll be back for episode 4, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all the topics we had for today. So now is the time of the show where we talk about what we watched within the last week. I don't know if you got to watch anything.
Yeah, so besides Joker, I saw The Wild Robot.
I did too.
Um
We'll
First
keep
of all,
it brief.
I saw yeah, I'll keep it brief. I did see that our friend Manny gave it a 3 on Letterboxd out of 5 stars.
It's at least a 4.5.
And I gave it a 3 as well.
No way, dude. A 3? I cried so much with that movie, dude. It hit me in all the right feels. Well, it was so good.
I'm glad. I really am. I wanted to love it, and I just felt like there was just a lot of times where it just was a little flat.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. I don't know. The whole thing, like, it's definitely not a perfect movie, but like, man, the whole thing just ties together so well. And like, there's so many beautiful moments, and like, the animation's beautiful, like the art style's beautiful.
Oh, absolutely.
The story, I think, is beautiful. And like, I don't know, like it hit me in all the right feels. And like, I don't know. I thought they had a cool, like, very subtle backstory to the world and like to the robots. And I was digging the whole thing. I didn't like get gripped immediately, but like halfway through the movie, I was like, oh, this is fantastic. So
yeah, I just wish I liked it more. I don't know.
That's funny. Like, the general consensus is that this is an amazing movie.
I can see why people really like it. It just didn't do it for me the way that I thought it would.
Bummer. But yeah, what else did you watch?
I've been continuing to watch 911's 3-part.
Nice.
Bro, I'm hooked. I am hooked. It is
wild.
So good.
Wild.
I can't believe I'm still fucking watching it. And I'm excited. It's wild.
Oh, man.
And then, yeah, I've been watching John Adams, which has been really, really fucking good.
Yeah.
Our revolutionary, like, wartime is fucking badass, man. Like, it's fucking cool,
especially when Paul Giamatti's attached to it.
Oh yeah, but I mean, it's just crazy to think about. Like, some of them were in their 20s, some of them were in their 30s and 40s, all just gathering together, and we're like, yeah, we're not gonna, we're gonna start a whole new, country, and we're gonna like rebel. And I'm just like, yeah. America like had a whole revolution, and
they did,
like,
badass as hell.
It's crazy. I just forget about that sometimes, and then I watch this, and I'm like, Paul Giamatti.
Nice.
And I don't know if I've watched much anything else that I can remember. Yeah, I don't know. I've been watching X-Files occasionally here and there. So
nice. It's a good show.
Yeah.
I have also been watching Survivor. That's been really fun. I hope you join me soon.
Yeah.
And I watched the first Harry Potter movie. Ryan and I, our friend Ryan, we're starting the franchise, so we're gonna try and finish that up by the end of the year. Feels like the right time, October, right?
Yeah,
it's like classic Harry Potter time.
Yeah, that fit in at least the first 3 movies during Halloween.
Yeah,
the fourth one,
I would agree.
4th one, 5th one, 6th one.
Yeah, 4th one can be November. Yeah.
Yeah, fourth one's like a November.
What else? I think the only other thing I've watched then is Agatha episode 4, which we did review today.
Yeah, I watched that.
Which that's my least favorite episode so far. And I'll just briefly say, like, my big problem with the episode was the musical number in this one.
It was fun, man.
It looks so bad. Like, I couldn't believe how bad the fire looked. I couldn't believe how bad the demon looked.
The demon was scary looking.
It was not. it looks so cheap to me. I don't know, man. Like, and like, I don't know, it being on like on her back and then catching on fire. It just, I hated it. I hated it so much.
Oh man, I liked it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, and like I was writing a line of like, this is really cool or this is like really corny when like the entire lore about like her mother was kind of being revealed, and I was like, I don't know how it sits with me yet. Like I like
what, like she was
concept,
singing she was singing the song as a way to like protect her daughter or like heal or like get rid of the curse.
Like it's not bad. I don't know. I think in a way like having this song play like constantly because of other people are playing it, protecting her, like that's a really neat idea. I think like that is the coolest thing from that whole backstory for sure. But yeah, I didn't love that last episode. So
the main issue that I have with that episode is a small one, and I'm just like, fine. It's lazy, but like whatever. It's like, so you're telling me that all of you know how to play this song and know how to play all these instruments completely in time. You know, like
they've never practiced before, but it sounds amazing.
You're telling me that all of you are also musicians and can all play the instruments here. Okay.
Right. All right.
But everything else I really did like.
Yeah, I will say I really enjoyed the addition of Aubrey Plaza's character Rio, who's absolutely Death at this point. Like, there's no doubt that she's the character of Death.
Why do you say that?
So I think it's so heavily implied that like in this episode that she is the person who took Agatha's son, and Agatha knows it. And I don't know, like there's other things that I you know throughout the episode where I fully believed it, that made me think that route. I couldn't call them to my memory right now, but I think for sure she's the character of Death.
I could see it. I also definitely think that they were romantically involved, so I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. But like, you know, like Death in the comics was romantically involved with Thanos.
I know. But like, by the way, what I thought was like when they were in the studio and Agatha like pressed the button, like she mentioned that like what you do best is like, you know, let the people around you die and then I collect the bodies. I mean, like they literally said it right there. Yeah. I mean, you might be right. Yeah. You might. I didn't even think about that. If they do introduce the character of Death, I will be fine with it.
I think it's dope.
I like it. I think I'm just like didn't really think they would ever touch that because like Death was primarily like the thing that Thanos was like yearning for the affections of, and that's why he did the snap. But that's not why he did it in this universe, right? Right. So I'm like, all right, if we are gonna do the character of Death and we want to do this, that's fine.
Like, Aubrey Plaza is a pretty cool person to cast for it, right?
Yeah, I think she's been great.
She has been, yeah.
And I like that Deborah Jo Rupp is dead.
Yeah, me too. I'm so glad they didn't reverse that. So
I'm kind of sad though, because she was great.
She was great, but she's not a witch, and so she's not necessarily needed for the show.
Yeah.
So that is the end of her character forever.
Do you really think that the teen is not her son?
I do now. I do, because I believe Aubrey Plaza when she said, "Look, that's not him."
Wonder who he is.
Well, it could be Wiccan.
But that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I don't know who else it could be besides Wiccan or her son. Like those are like the two main things.
I think it's her son. I think she's lying to her.
She might be. She could be a really good liar, and I just believed it.
Now there was a quote though that like one of the Marvel, like one of the producers for Marvel said that Wanda is off the table ever since Multiverse of Madness, and viewers will have
She's
to.
off the table.
Well, they said like, is Wanda dead? And she said, ever since Multiverse of Madness, Wanda is off the table, and viewers will just have to keep on watching. And I'm like,
I don't know.
what a weird comment.
Right. Yeah,
Like,
because you're kind of
no,
implying she'll come back at some point.
Yeah. I'm like, are you just trying to get people to keep watching Agatha, or like, are you, and that was it? Or is there actually something to that comment? Like, I don't know. I think she's coming back personally. But
there's no doubt.
I just don't. I can't.
And my prediction is that she will come back
wicked.
in the finale of this show. That's my theory still. So I think they are still kind of like playing with you a little bit. But yeah, we'll have to see.
Yeah,
I'm very curious about who this teen character is for sure. I love that
because
mystery.
they mentioned like, oh, my dad. He says like my dad would use the thing to heat up the sink in like the third episode.
Oh yeah.
So he mentions like he's got a dad.
You're right. Maybe Vision is doing that when he's cooking. He's putting that in the sink.
Maybe it's Mephisto.
That'd be wild. Yeah. I mean, I still think Mephisto's going to show up at some point.
I think he is.
Yeah.
You don't just name drop that and then just never see him.
Agreed. I totally agree. Yeah. But yeah, I think that is everything we've watched this past week and everything we wanted to talk about today. So as always, thank you all for watching and listening. We like to release our podcasts on Monday and clips on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and YouTube. And if you want to follow us on our social medias, those are in the description below. And if you want to give us a like, a comment, or rating, a review, or a subscribe, we greatly appreciate it.
And as always, until next time.